we'll move on to the next topic now, which is basically dealing with body image concerns. And the first question that I have here is, how can we help teenagers and adolescents with thalassemia who may experience delayed body growth and weaker physical conditions for their age reduce overthinking about body image concerns? Kathleen, Kenya?
I mean, I can jump in just with I use a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy with my clients, and like I said, in our practice, I'm certainly not a like body image expert by any means, because that is a little bit of a specialty that I have a few colleagues who are specialized in that. But just within self-image, body image, mind image, self-esteem type of thing, there's a therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a kind of formalized process of getting an understanding of where your patient is at, like how they're thinking about themselves physically, but what are their core beliefs about themselves. You might see a patient who has the same, let's say the two that have roughly the same kind of factors going on body wise, and one's core belief might be that this is who I am and this is the way it is, and another's core belief may be there's something wrong with me. And so getting into the core beliefs of the one where that one is struggling, to be able to kind of pull those out and manage the day-to-day thoughts that lead to those core beliefs, or even in the past the different experiences that have happened to lead to those core beliefs. As you all know so very well, so many things have been going on medically since you were born, all the different procedures and experiences that lead to how you think about thalassemia and how you think about yourself. And those are those kind of core beliefs. So getting into those and trying to then it's like you're reframing that process so that the patient can see it in a little bit more of a like realistic view, in terms of like the quality they may put on it. Like the actual physical feature may be happening, right? Let's just say, but it's how we think about things. It's the story that we have that can really be, discussed, and therefore the patient can see things differently. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Evgenia?
Yes. Well, actually, when I was thinking this question, I was thinking that, loving our body the way it is and loving ourselves the way it is are not two different things. I think Kathleen also was pointing to that direction, that we really need to come to terms with who we are as a whole, right? That we have thalassemia. This is who we are. It is part of us. And yes, our body in many ways is very often making us suffer. So it is more difficult to love it, and it is more difficult to love ourselves and to take care of ourselves. And it goes together with also sometimes the feelings of depression and anxiety about the future and what awaits us in the future. So it is not an easy process to really reach a certain level of acceptance. And this is where I have found, at least, that psychotherapy is very useful. And but I'm again going to say that for many people, coming to terms with who they are and what life has thrown to them is very difficult. What their background is, who their parents are. We each have to deal with a lot of things that we don't like, and they're a given. we have been given something that we don't like very much. So coming to terms with something we don't like it's not easy. But I think that we can reach a certain point of acceptance and of making peace with what life has given us and with who we really are. And that can help us a great deal in all aspects of life, with how we deal with ourselves, how we deal with others, how we deal in work. It's an issue of really accepting what is there. It's not easy, but I think it
Yeah.
can be done.
So I just want to be clear. We have lots of patients here in Nepal and mostly in Asian country where patients do not have quality of treatment from the childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So we often see everyone with some physical difficulties and the
Hmm.
differences from a normal people. I
Hmm.
just want to be clear. How can we counsel to those patient, as Kathleen just said, a cognitive behavior therapy? Is that the way we can handle those thinking, that if the patient are having such kind of overthinking about themselves
Mm-hmm.
and start comparing to the normal people and see themselves as a victim or a
Mm-hmm.
weak person?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a
Yeah, I
major
mean,
problem here in Nepal, you know.
oh, yeah. So just like in a simplified way, the way that would work is overthinking is a lot of thinking, right? So if there's a
Hmm.
lot of thinking going on throughout the day of a negative nature about yourself, your body, and it keeps on going, obviously you're going to not feel good about yourself, right? So the way we
Yeah.
think affects how we feel, and how we feel affects what we do. It's called the cognitive triad. So if we
Okay.
can target the thinking and have somebody identify a thought. If I have a thought, oh, today's going to be the worst day ever, I say to my patient, is that a helpful thought? And is that a valid thought? I have them ask them those two questions. And so that's not a helpful thought for me to have. And it's not even valid because the day hasn't happened yet. There's a
Okay.
large percentage of thoughts that are just not even, there's no data to support them because it's our thoughts are our interpretation of the world. They're not hard fact data, unless it's hard fact data. Unless you say to me that something hard fact data that the president of the United States is this person. Okay, that's data. But for the most part, thoughts are interpretations. So
Hmm.
if we can monitor those interpretations and reduce them, then our moods are going to be more stable and then probably produce better thoughts. It's kind of it's a generation, it generates things. The more we can identify those thoughts that aren't helpful and aren't even valid, right? Now, it gets more complicated, obviously, but I would start there. If somebody's having a negative thought about themselves, is this helpful to your mood? Usually not, right? And is it even valid? If it's not valid, get rid of it. And if it's valid, okay, then you might have to have some. There's something called radical acceptance. Sometimes we just have to radically accept something is true. I have to radically
Hmm.
accept that I am terrible at math. I just have to radically accept that. I can try, but there's some things I have to radically accept. So, but I'm not going to think about it all the time because it's not helpful.
Okay.
If I understood the question correctly, I want to add one more thing, because as George said, I'm also 64. So when we were being transfused in the 1960s, and transfusions were very rare at that time because they were also very dangerous. Of course, a lot of my fellow thalassemics have physical difficulties and deformities and so on that make it a lot harder to really come to terms with body image. But one of the things that has been very useful throughout the years was that we started support groups in our association, in
Mm-hmm.
our local association. So we all got together and shared our experiences and the way we deal with things. And I had found at that time in the 1980s, when I returned from the States, when I started these support groups, peer support groups, thalassemics being together, and I was just coordinating the groups. That was very useful. So I think that sometimes getting together and sharing our experiences and our hardships and the way things are in life uh, is very useful, not just for thalassemics. This is why cancer patients now have uh, peer support groups and different categories of people. For example, Alcoholic Anonymous, they work as a group because they are peers who are really knowing what they're going through, and they are supporting one another. And I have found that very useful. So I think that sometimes it's very comforting to see that you're not the only one dealing with these things.
Absolutely. Very helpful.
Okay.
Okay, there is. Gerald, you haven't said much. How do you deal with this?
Okay, so I had this discussion with my brother, who's also thalassemia patient, earlier today, and we came to the solution that we dealt with it through time and age. Because as teenager, we of course had this problem. We were smaller, we were weaker, we didn't feel like we were equals to people in our age. But now, with years and all we went through, we came to peace with ourselves that yeah, that's how we are. We are different. We can't say we're not different. We came to peace with our bodies, and that was the best thing we did. And also, no one is perfect. This is like everyone need to understand that even the most perfect person we see still have insecurities, and they probably have the same overthinking about their bodies almost as much as we do. So that helped a lot.
Hmm.
But also, me and my brother don't have any visual uh, problem. Like you don't really see that we're sick. So I can't really help in that point. We were just smaller and weaker than others.
Mhm.
So I just want to have to be more clear. We have few patients in Nepal. Uh, they are adult. They are above 30. So their physical condition is very weak. They are very short, and their uh, puberty is very like a child. No, not grown up like a man or a perfect lady. So
Mhm.
what we see is they do not tend to much get out of the home or be in the society, get interactive with the people. They have reduced their everything, they always want to be in their home or be isolated, far from the society, because they have thought very much about them regarding their health conditions. So how can we, uh, guide them or talk to the psychologist to insist them that these patients can be helped with these kind of things by these ways? So do you have any suggestions for that?
I mean, I would say the first thing is they have to get out, because isolation and staying in is just going to increase depression. And
Hmm.
um, the way to self empowerment and building self esteem is productivity and competence. So, whatever they might be good at, finding something they're good at, it doesn't matter what it is, but finding others that do it, and I don't mean like good expert, I just mean good, you like it, right? Something enjoyable, and certainly getting out of the house and being part of a community, like Evgenia said, that very, very important. I mean, there's the beauty now is there's so many virtual groups out there. Like I have one
Yeah,
for coolies, which is certainly, anybody can be part of it. I do it once a month. um, but you have to talk to people, and anything you fear, or that you have to approach, you have to lean into it, as hard as it is. It's the way to reduce it. If you isolate yourself away from the things that, what I'm imagining, they're not wanting to be part of because of the way they're feeling, it just reinforces the negative thoughts of yourself. So you got to get out there. It's hard. I think that's one of the hardest things to suggest. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Kathleen. I think that the getting out is very important, but of course the other question is, how do you do that? How do you convince somebody to go out there and not to isolate themselves? Um, One thing would be to invite them to coffees and to go out and so on and so forth. Um, but I think one important issue that also relates to depression and anxiety, that was our first subject, has to do with meaning in life. So that very often it is very difficult to find meaning in life. So that something that really moves us, something that we find worth living for. And this is also what helps with compliance, because if you have a reason for why you're living, you have a reason to comply to whatever you have to do. If you don't have a reason for why you're living, it's very easy to give up your transfusions, your chelation, your whatever. So, of course, this all needs to happen in some kind of a support system, whether this is a peer group where you discuss things, whether this is psychotherapy, whether this is a social worker, somebody that can really help the person who is depressed and isolated and basically doesn't like themselves and has no meaning in life, to sort of start to search for something, to search for a meaning, to look out for things, to try to create a friendship, a close tie with somebody, to find an interest in something. So I don't
I
know what you have there in Nepal, but maybe, starting a support group in your Thalassaemia association would be useful to take them out, and so that if they can join. And yes, George.
I fully agree with what you're saying, both of you, actually, Kathleen and Vinia. Uh, and I will give you my example. When I was 19, I was actually 4 foot and 5 inches. So you can imagine how little I was in comparison to my peers in school and university. And the way that I continuously have been working all my life actually was to put small targets in my life. One of them was that I needed to grow taller than my mother. Uh, Irrelevant targets, but very important targets and things that you could concentrate on. And that gets you to begin to become a little bit more stronger in saying, well, I'm determined, I'm going to get there. You, I never put extreme targets. I never wanted to be the heavyweight champion of the world, but I always used to put small targets for myself, and that kept me going. And I believe that apart from what Adriania and Kathleen said, which is a matter of having some peer review, peer support to specifically to patients who are really quite low. The other thing is to see whether you can start putting some targets. And I'm sure most of them start giving up their treatment, and that makes it a lot worse. So it is important that somebody needs to help these people to go back into their treatment, because that alone is going to make them feel a lot better, I think.
Mhm.
Can I
Okay.
add something based
Any,
on experience?
sorry?
Yes. Can I say something based on my
Sorry, Jasmine.
experience?
Yeah.
I used to live in a small city named Shahrikor, and my friends there were somehow isolated from other people, and they didn't go out in society, didn't go to cinemas, and were so isolated actually. And then there was me, who had lots of friends other than thalassemia patients. So I planned meetings and brought my friends, non-thalassemia friends, one by one, who were safe people for me, and I knew that they support me and my friends, to these meetings, and then my friends felt safe with them. And after that, we went to cinemas together, to coffee shops, and other places. Now I moved out of Shahrikot, but my friends still go together and have their social life with non-thalassemia friends of mine still. And I think that's what we can do for our friends. We can find safe people and introduce our friends, that isolated friends, with these safe people, and to let them know they are not alone, they are not judged, and they can be in society without the fear of being judged. And that was my experience with my friend. It worked.
That's beautiful idea.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I have to say, well, just one last part about just along the lines of that the Cooley's anemia, you know, they started in the 50s. It's like a family. And so I think the more that I don't, and I, every country obviously different of how you can do this, and America is just off different, right? But the idea of cultivating that family. I mean, I've never worked at a place ever, and I never will again, like that's like this. And the conferences are one big family, and I'm not kidding. And it's so impressive to see everyone, and everyone brings friends with them, like you were saying, Yasmin, and connects with others, and now they're bringing their husbands, and it's just growing more and more and more. So building that into the fabric of thalassemia, no matter where, is just your rock solid success, if that can happen. So you just got me thinking of that.
Okay. I think we've exhausted the question. Well, more or less the questions on body image, because the next couple of questions I've got, they are more or less exactly the same. I don't know. One of them says, are there resources or practices that can help address and improve body image issues in this context? Uh, do we have anything additional to add specifically to this question? Hello? Lavinia? Kathleen?
Not
Very good.
not really, but there was a question comment on the previous thing about anxiety and depression. I think that fits in a little bit with this, that physical exercise and meditation are very useful for reducing stress and also for helping us feel better with our body. So that there are practices that can help us feel better in our skin. So I would suggest that, either some form of an exercise, whether this is whatever the person likes, could be yoga, it could be Pilates, it could be going walking, swimming, whatever there is that makes you feel better in your body, and also meditation very helpful. Or
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree so much with that. And along the lines of meditation, Evgenia, is I use meditation with my patients in order to have them separate thoughts from who they are, right? Your thought is not who you are. Your thought is just a thought, and to help them separate themselves from thalassemia. Like when you go through breathing exercises and meditation and calm yourself, you can see things clearer. You're not thalassemia. You are not thalassemia. You are. It's but you can separate from that, and that experience I think is so incredibly helpful through meditation. But you're right. Exercise
yeah,
key piece.
yeah. Well, now that you mentioned it, I think that when I was in my late adolescence, early adulthood, in my 20s, one thing that suddenly hit me is that I'm not my thalassemia. I have thalassemia. Yes, this is something that I do have, but this is not all of me.
Right.
I have a self that is a much larger thing than just my thalassemia. So
Yeah.
I think that this is very useful to be able to separate, as you're saying, your who you are as a person from what you have, right? And this is why I very often have this hard time by saying we thalassemics. Yeah, we are people with thalassemia. We are not just thalassemics. So it sort of takes over our whole identity, and
Right.
that's not all of who we are.
Right.
I believe, if I may, you both have hit the nail, uh, the head of the nail right now. And this is what I've also noticed. The people that seem to be capable of dealing with whatever thalassemia throws at them, in my experience, are the people who are capable of saying, I am this person who has thalassemia. It's a very big challenge to actually succeed in saying that. But once you're capable of saying that, your whole life changes. And that's exactly what I also realized at some stage of my life, that thalassemia is a very small part of me. And the stronger I became, the smaller it became. And I think it's important to see whether you can manipulate that thinking. Uh, it's very easy to allow to be overwhelmed by what your thalassemia brings you, but it's very refreshing and wonderful if you're able to turn around and say, well, that's not me only.